From the talks with Canada and Mexico so far, are you not seeing the progress that you wanted in order to
I don't see
extend
it
that
at all.
law?
No, not on drugs. They're only apprehending 1%. You're right about that. It's a little more than that. But they should be apprehending much more because a lot comes through Canada. And as Mexico gets stronger in terms of the border, it goes up to Canada. And a lot of drugs are coming in through Canada.
That is U.S. President Donald Trump today saying at this point in time, at least 25% tariffs on Canadian imports are still scheduled to go ahead next week. Trump claims that, quote, drugs are still pouring into the U.S. despite Canada's latest efforts to address both fentanyl at the border and illegal migration. Today, Public Safety Minister David McGuinty, alongside Immigration Minister Mark Miller, are in Washington to meet with Trump's border czar, Tom Homan. McGuinty says there's strong evidence that Canada is making progress at the border.
The evidence is irrefutable. The progress is being made. In my view, any test that was put on this country, on Canada, in terms of showing progress and meeting standards for the border, I believe those have been met. Is the work finished? No. It will continue.
We will continue to do that work and do everything necessary to avoid these tariffs coming in. But like I said, if on Tuesday there are unjustified tariffs brought in on Canada, we will have an immediate and extremely strong response, as Canadians expect.
Trump's latest threats come not too long after premiers went en masse to Washington to help Canada try and avoid them. Outgoing Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Andrew Furey was there for that trip. And since then, earlier this week, he's announced that he's leaving politics. The Premier is with us live right now. Hi, Premier Furey. Good to see you. Thanks for making the time.
No problem. Good to see you, Vashi.
I have a bunch of questions about your exit, of course, and your announcement, but you remain Premier until your replacement is chosen. And I have to ask, just based on what we just played, and the last conversation we had in which you were talking about how it seemed like the administration was not, almost not negotiating, I'm paraphrasing, but not negotiating in good faith, how concerned you are about what could be coming down the pipe next week.
Well, I remain incredibly concerned, as do most Canadians. And I've said from day one, I've said it on your show, said it on others, there was always, in my belief, a conflation of the fentanyl issue, the drug issue, and the tariffs. And now there's a conflation of three issues and confusion of three issues. There's tariffs, there's drugs, and now there's the threat of the 51st state, an attack on our sovereignty. I believe that Canadians need to understand that all three of these exist, and they are all three different threats or different instruments that the president is trying to use to create chaos and confusion in order to extract value from Canadians. But I just listened to the preamble and to the interviews before. The president continues to try to create a false narrative that we as Canadians cannot buy into. The drugs are not coming from Canada into the United States. They're coming from the United States into Canada. It is a joint responsibility of both governments, United States and Canada, to remove any drugs at any time from our streets. But make no mistake, we are not the drug lords providing drugs to the United States, just as a false narrative that the president wants us to succumb to. And this is where Canadians are going to have belief in themselves and their values and have the courage and the resolve to stand up and put out these false beliefs, because they're not true. And what the president wants to achieve is trying to create chaos amongst us in order to extract value. And I do believe that, given his imperialistic agenda and his expansion agenda, that the attack on sovereignty is real, as you heard the Prime Minister say. I believe it's real. I believe it's a real threat. But I do know that Canadians will stand up and meet the moment in order to protect our values, protect who we are, and protect our sovereignty and independence.
I wanted to ask for your perspective on what that might look like, and in particular against the backdrop of what you just laid out, the factual inaccuracies that are underpinning the stuff that Donald Trump is saying, particularly about the border. Obviously, in the interim, since the threat was initially made, we have done a lot of extra stuff at the border. Do you think there will come a time where basically we'll have to say, you're wrong, this isn't true, and we're not going to keep doing new stuff that doesn't actually make a difference, if that is in fact the case?
I do believe we've hit that point, and it's been my revised opinion, given a response from the president, that as a Team Canada approach, we need to take a different strategy. We tried advocacy, we tried education, and we still need to do those things. But we need to be careful in how we respond to every comment the president makes. From day one, I thought he was conflating the issue with the border. I thought he was setting the table with the border to rationalize to his citizens why he needed to impose tariffs or why he needed to expand or change the border, which I see in the news today. But it is important that we not respond to everything all the time. We need to do what Canadians do best. Be calm, be cool, be collected, be strong, be ready to be proportional in our response, but be firm in it. And I worry that, you know, tomorrow he can wake up and start talking about something else, and all of a sudden he's the puppet master pulling the strings, and we're moving. And I don't think that that's what Canadians want. More importantly, I don't think it's what's needed in a strategy of negotiation like this.
So you're obviously very clear-eyed about sort of the threat posed by everything he is saying and saying that he will do. What is kind of behind the decision to not want to lead your province through the tough waters that are ahead?
Look, you know, these jobs, you occupy them temporarily. It was never going, when I started 5 years ago before the pandemic, it was never going to be a full-time, a permanent job, permanent career path for me. I was very honest with the people of Newfoundland and Labrador that this would be something that I would do for a definitive period of time, led through troubled waters in the past. So I'm not afraid of troubled waters where there was an economic crisis in Newfoundland and Labrador, COVID-19, the demographic crisis in Newfoundland and Labrador, changing our healthcare system. I'm not afraid of a challenge. This was a decision taken by my family looking forward 3 to 4 years. Now we have this different rule in our legislature in Newfoundland and Labrador. If you run and win and then form government and you step down subsequently, there has to be an election within a year of you stepping down. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, in any other parliaments in the world, but it exists here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So I didn't think it was fair to run, win, form a government, and then you had to make the tough decision to leave in a year or 18 months, triggering 2 elections in 2 years. That's not good for my family. It's not good for families across the province. It's a tough decision. But on the balance of recognizing the chaos that the president is creating and realizing, and I think Canadians need to realize this isn't going away in a day. It's not going away in 4 days. It's not going away in 4 months. It's not going away potentially in 4 years. I believe that this type of agenda is embedded in the MAGA ideology and will probably outlive the president. So we need to make sure that we are being strong and firm and courageous in our resolve to prevent any attacks, economic or otherwise, on our sovereignty.
One final question for you. Is there another role that you would take on to endeavor in that respect? And more bluntly, you know, your federal counterparts are doing a lot better in public opinion polling. Lots of people all of a sudden deciding to run again who had decided not to. Have you ruled out a run for the federal Liberals?
I have at this particular moment in time. Politics is in my blood. It's in my family's blood. We've always been a family who served. I wouldn't rule it out in the future, but right now I'm going back to serve the people of Newfoundland and Labrador in a different capacity, and that's as a trauma orthopedic surgeon fixing people's broken bones, and I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Premier, I'll leave it on that note. I appreciate making the time for the conversation. Thank you.
Thanks very much.